Hello and welcome to my video all about how to knit 1/2 cables. I'll be showing you 4 different types of this cable: 1/2 LC, 1/2 RC, 1/2 LPC and 1/2 RPC. Please don't be put off by the abbreviations, they are very simple techniques, and basically they're all 1/2 cables because you're passing 1 stitch over 2 stitches. LC stands for left cross, RC stands for right cross, LPC stands for left purl cross, and RPC stands for right purl cross. All of these methods create a cable strand that is 1 stitch wide, and even though they're very simple to do, you can combine them to make very intricate cable patterns. As you can see, I've already got a small sample of knitting here with stockinette stitch in the middle and a garter stitch border at each side. Okay, so first I'm going to show you how to do a 1/2 LC. In other words, a 1/2 left cross. 2 plus 1 is 3, so this cable is going to be worked across 3 stitches. It's a left cross, so it's going to be a left-leaning cable. This means that any stitches added onto the cable needle will be held at the front. We're going to slip the first stitch purlwise onto the cable needle, and then keep the cable needle at the front. Then we're going to knit the last 2 stitches out of the 3 so that these pass behind that stitch on the cable needle. And then we knit the stitch off the cable needle. So basically the stitch that we put onto the cable needle has been passed in front of and over the other 2 stitches. So really all we're doing is changing the order of the stitches. Here you can see the resulting cable is 1 stitch wide, has been passed over 2 stitches and is left leaning. I'm now just going to do 1 knit stitch before showing you the right leaning equivalent, which is 1/2 RC, or 1/2 right cross. Again, this cable is worked over 3 stitches, where 1 stitch is passed over 2. However, this time is going to be a right leaning cable, which means that any stitches added onto the cable needle are going to be held at the back, behind the needles. So we slip 2 stitches purlwise onto the cable needle, and then hold the cable needle at the back. We then knit the next stitch so it passes in front of the 2 on the cable needle, and then we knit the 2 stitches off the cable needle. Again, we're changing the order of these 3 stitches, so that now the 3rd stitch is now at the front. This produces a right leaning cable, as you can see, that's 1 stitch wide and has been passed over 2 stitches. In my previous video, I showed you how to do 1/1 or 1/1 cables. In this diagram, I've compared a 1/1 right cross with a 1/2 right cross. And of course the only difference is that the 1/1 right cross moves the cable 1 stitch to the right, whilst the 1/2 right cross moves the cable 2 stitches to the right. I just wanted to make this note because the difference between them is simply the steepness of the cable strand that it produces. So if you're making a 1/2 or even a 1/3 cable, then that's going to be more horizontal and more shallow than a 1/1 cable. And that's why you'll often see 1/1 and 1/2 cables combined together, because it produces nice flowing lines in your cable pattern, rather than just creating straight diagonals. Right, so now I'm going to show you how to do the 1/2 left purl cross. This is very similar to the 1/2 left cross, except of course there are purl stitches in it. you'll nearly always find that it's the purl stitches that are passed behind. So in the case of a 1/2 cable, it's very likely that it's going to be a 1 knit stitch passed over 2 purl stitches. However, saying that, you should always consult the key in your cable pattern, because that will tell you exactly how to make an LPC, and you should always consult and always follow the instructions in your particular cable pattern. Okay, so again, it's worked over 3 stitches, and we first slip 1 stitch purlwise onto the cable needle, which is held at the front. We then bring the working yarn to the front and do 2 purl stitches. These purl stitches are of course being passed behind the stitch on the cable needle. And then the working yarn goes to the back behind the needles again, and we knit the stitch off the cable needle. So here you should be able to see a left leaning cable that's 1 stitch wide that's been passed over 2 purl stitches. The purl stitches are recognisable by little bumps of yarn, or purl bumps, right next to the needle. If you're wondering why you would use a purl cross rather than a regular knit cross, it's usually because you're using a reverse stockinette background behind the cables. If you'd like to understand more about this, then please have a look at my other video, which is all about understanding these kinds of cables. Okay, so lastly, we're going to look at the 1/2 RPC, or 1/2 right purl cross. Once again, this cable is worked over 3 stitches, and we're passing 1 knit stitch over 2 purl stitches. To begin, we slip 2 stitches purlwise onto the cable needle and hold the needle at the back. We then knit a stitch because we want the knit stitch to pass in front of the 2 stitches on the cable needle. Then we bring the working yarn to the front and purl the 2 stitches off the cable needle. So now what we have is a right leaning cable that's 1 stitch wide, and to the left you can see those 2 purl stitches. You can clearly recognise the purl stitches by the bumps of yarn, or purl bumps, right next to the needle. And that's it, that's my demonstration of 1/2 cables. I really hope this has been helpful to you, and thank you very much for watching.